What's up, boys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing NBA Imperialism Part 2 in 2K23, but with all-time NBA teams. How this works is a team will be chosen from a randomizing wheel. From there, we will go on to another random wheel with the selected team states and teams that are on their border. If they land on a state, then they will claim that state and move on. But if they land on a team, they will have to play the selected team on the road. The winning team will then take the losing team's territory and a player of my choosing. We'll do this until there's one NBA team standing that controls the entire map. Just for an example, if the wheel landed on the Bulls, I would create a wheel with the 3 states and 2 teams bordering them. If the wheel landed on Iowa, then they would take it and take on their new borders. But if it landed on the Bucks, they would have to play them in Milwaukee. If the Bulls won, they would take the Bucks territory and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But if the Bulls lost, the Bucks would then own the Bulls territory and take Michael Jordan. Additionally, for this video, each team will only be allowed to be on the attack once per round, and the wheel will reset with the surviving teams after every team has attacked without being eliminated. I also added Mexico and the important parts of Canada, plus I moved some franchises to their former locations to even things out. First up on the attack is the Phoenix Suns. They border 5 territories since the Clippers and Nuggets don't share enough of a border for it to count. They are getting a first round bye after taking New Mexico and adding a bunch of teams and Oklahoma to their list of neighbors. Next up is the Supersonics, who are sandwiched between the Grizzlies and Trailblazers, but they could peacefully take Idaho. Instead, they'll be attacking the Trailblazers, which is a bold move. This game was looking solid at first. For a few minutes, Prime Westbrook was back to playing like what he gets paid to do, which gave the Supersonics an early lead, but Damian Lillard kept doing some Dame time things, and the rest of the Trailblazers played pretty well, so it ended up being a blowout victory for the Trailblazers. Seattle finally got their NBA team back, and it's gone by the first matchup. Dame had a game high of 26 points, and the Supersonics didn't have any standout performances. The Trailblazers aren't very deep to begin with. They have holes at their forward position, so I'm going to give them the franchise player they passed on in 2007. Attacking next is the Pistons. They are completely surrounded by NBA teams, so there's no way out of a game in this one. On the other hand, there's going to be an absolute juggernaut to come out of this region. For now, they'll be attacking the Cavs, who have 99 LeBron, but outside of that, they're not that great and they're very guard heavy. So it's not a terrible move by the Pistons, except for the fact that 3 minutes into the game, Isaiah Thomas went down with an injury. It was hard to see what happened there because of the camera moving, but I guess he tried to box out a 7-footer and then immediately had a heart attack. Not sure if that was vaccine related or not. From here, the Pistons were still able to keep it close. They do have 93 overall, Chauncey Billups replacing Isaiah Thomas, but LeBron went on a tear and eventually the Cavs pulled away in the 4th quarter. The Pistons lost 49-59 on the road thanks to IT having a collapsed lung. The Cavs are really struggling at the 4 and 5 compared to the rest of these teams, but the Pistons don't have much to offer here, so I'm sticking with starting Isaiah Thomas at the point, and hopefully some of that clean Cleveland air will help his lung heal by the next game. The Lakers are up next. Coming into this, they are the clear favorites to win this, but the rest of the region is safe for now. They are taking the entire country of Mexico. Another Western Conference team is up with the Denver Nuggets. They have some decent matchups nearby, but also a safe route of taking on the void of the Midwest, but they will be challenging Mormon countries. Since I updated the active players, Nikola Jokic is the best Nugget of all time, and the Nuggets look nasty in this one. Carmelo is by far the best 95 overall player in this game. When he's hot, he makes everybody else look like Kendrick Perkins. Then they have David Robinson running around, who once scored 73 points in a game, and the back-to-back MVP setting them up the whole time, and it worked out for them. The Nuggets are the first attacking team to win on the road after Carmelo Anthony dropped a cool 39 points on 15 for 22 shooting in 6-minute quarters. The only real weakness on this Nuggets team is a point guard and power forward, which couldn't be any more perfect for the team they just beat. I had to take John Stockton so the Nuggets have the best passing point guard and center of all time, and so that Karl Malone doesn't get in Carmelo's way. Besides, it would just feel wrong taking Karl Malone without his legal consent, and all he's going to do is keep penetrating the paint just to give the Nuggets a quiet 13 points a game. The worst team on the map is up next. The Charlotte Hornets' only 90 overall player is Glenn Rice. LaMelo Ball in his 3rd season is almost their highest rated player of all time. Thankfully for them, they'll be staying off the attacking side of things for now and claiming South Carolina. The Warriors are up next and they will be attacking the Kings. The Kings are filled with a bunch of old heads, so I'm sure these Splash Bros would have had them shell-shocked, but these old geezers had their moments. Some of these players were even hitting 3-pointers when they retired well before the invention of it, but it's almost like Oscar Robertson kept forgetting to guard Curry out this deep, and the OG Splash Bro Chris Mullin was also doing his thing all game long. It wasn't a blowout, but the Kings never had the lead outside of the 1st quarter, and the Warriors won 55-44. I added the Big O to the Warriors to be the starting shooting guard, and the Warriors now control half of California. Next up on the attack is the Houston Rockets, who are in a super tough region, but also have Arkansas and a young New Orleans franchise nearby, but they'll be challenging the Spurs, who are absolutely loaded. James Harden came out on a tear in this one, scoring the Rockets' first 9 points and putting them up early, but the Spurs are the most fundamentally sound team of all time, so within minutes, they took the lead back. The Rockets have some of the best big men on the map between Hakeem, Moses, Yao, and Mutombo, but David Robinson and Timmy D were having their way with them all night. The Spurs took a 10-point lead in the second, and from there it was a stalemate. The Spurs ended up winning on the road 65-56. James Harden is a risky player to start in this, but he had 29 points on over 50% shooting, which is fantastic, except for the fact that every other Rocket finished with 4 points or less. David Robinson had a huge game for the Spurs on both sides of things with 20 points, 2 steals, and 3 blocks, which makes it unfortunate that he's going to have to be coming off the bench from here on out, because I had to take Hakeem from the Rockets to form a 98 overall duo down low. Next up is the Bulls, who fall to the Midwest Void and take my home state of Missouri. From here, it was the Knicks, who now own all of New York since I moved the Nets back to New Jersey, and they'll be taking on a top 5 rated team in the Philadelphia 76ers. Moses Malone cooked Willis Reed on the first possession to take the lead, and yeah, they just never looked back. The 76ers beat the Knicks like they were a Charlotte Hornets girlfriend with a big mouth. They even gangbanged the ref on the way out. AI had a game high of 23, and past his prime, Melo had the team high for the Knicks. Taking a player from the Knicks felt so wrong, because in my mind, Patrick Ewing is the best Knick of all time, and Walt Frazier is just an NBA commentator, but he's also a 97 overall in this game. The 76ers are already stacked with big men, and now it means AI is no longer the best guard on this team, but it had to be done. The Clippers are up next on the attack, which is a bad idea considering they were founded in 1970, but most of their roster consists of the Lob City era. They are also surrounded by some of the top teams like the Lakers and Warriors. They'll only be taking Nevada for now, but they need to add some pieces soon, or else we're going to end up looking at the pregame matchup and immediately cut to the final score. The Cavaliers are on the attack. They've already added Isaiah Thomas after defending home court against the Pistons, and it turns out they will be the first team to play a second game. These two teams were neck and neck through the first half, but there are some sleeper builds on this Cleveland squad. Kevin Love knocked down a handful of three-pointers to give the Cavs the first comfortable lead of the game, and 99 LeBron was having a slow day in Canada, but he woke up late in the fourth, made some good decisions, put some balls on some chins, and took the W on the road 59-51. The Cavs still need some help in the paint, but I had to choose between Kawhi and Vince Carter. They're very even, but I ended up taking Vince, who will start at small forward and move LeBron to the 4. The Wizards are up next, and they'll be taking West Virginia, which is a pretty dumb move considering they'll now be bordering the Cavs and 76ers. We get another state acquisition from the Hawks, so they'll be taking Tennessee without a fight since I moved the Grizzlies back to Vancouver. And the Mavericks are going to actually challenge a team here. Their best plan is to do anything but head south, and thankfully for their sake, they'll be heading to Phoenix. I added 95 overall Charles Barkley to the Suns, but it kind of adds on to the all-time Suns hype problem. They don't even have a center on their roster or a player over 6'10". Meanwhile, the Mavs 4 and 5 are 7-1 and 7-2. The Suns were still hanging on throughout the entire game, but this disgusting possession here is what did it. That is not slang. This possession was truly hard to watch, but it somehow worked for them, and that was the final straw. The Mavs won this one on the road 59-52. The leading scorer for the Mavs, Jim Jackson. He played 14 years and never won an award, but he just had himself a night. The Mavs needed a 1 and 3. I could have downloaded an overpowered Charles Barkley build, but Nash is a solid 96 either way, and I like the giant front court they already have in Dallas. So I took Steve Nash to start at point guard, who seems like a great fit considering he'll be the second Steve Nash on the roster. I was on a roll with teams taking on states here, so I'm not going to waste any time. The Pelicans were up first and took Mississippi. Next up was the Grizzlies, who took Montana. Then the Bucks took Iowa. I have no clue if I'm saying this right, but the Timberwolves took the province of Manitoba. The Celtics are at a real disadvantage in this video. They start with 1 out of 6 odds of playing a game. They took New Hampshire, and their odds get even worse. But finally, the Heat literally have no choice in this one. They have to play the Magic. I spun the wheel anyway, and would you look at that? Wow. I've got LeBron starting at the point for the Heat, but to be fair, the Magic also have Penny Hardaway. And we've got a classic matchup down low between Shaquille O'Neal and Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq won the tip, and the battle began with Shaq putting up a post shot just to be blocked by Shaq. But Shaq recovered quickly after getting an offensive rebound and finishing over Shaq. The Floridians were tied in the fourth, but the Heat went on a quick 7-0 run. Tracy McGrady then hit back-to-back threes, even with Shaq right in his face. The Heat were up 3 with 30 seconds left. The Magic just needed one stop for a chance to force overtime, but Shaq did not box out Shaq, and Shaq put this game away. The Heat won a tough one on the road 60-54. The Miami Heat have a ton of holes to fill considering they're one of the youngest franchises, but I went with 95 overall Tracy McGrady, who will be the Heat's new 6'8 starting point guard, and LeBron will move up to the 3. At this point, we're down to 3 teams on the wheel for the first round, but really it's 2 because I didn't remember until later that the Clippers already took Nevada, and the Nets are the second to last team to attack. They are surrounded by the 76ers in Delaware, but that tiny little guy saved them for now. And the last team to be on the attack in this round is the Indiana Pacers. They're in a pickle being surrounded by the LeBron Cavs and the Jordan Bulls, but there's a chance they can take Kentucky and keep heading south, but they have to play the Chicago Bulls on the road against the most overpowered player in the game. And the Pacers, on the other hand, are one of the worst all-time teams on the map. Present day Tyrese Halliburton is their starting point guard, who will be matched matched up against MVP Derrick Rose. Of course, the Bulls started off with putting the Pacers starting five on a poster, but Dennis Rodman is also out here catching lobs. Michael Jordan double teamed, hits a floater, no problem, but the Pacers would not give up. They are the kings at hitting efficient jump shots and getting to the foul line. And by the 2-minute mark in the game, a player I have never even heard of took the lead back for the Pacers. Of course, the Bulls just regrouped, told everyone to get out of MJ's way, and he hit 2 contested shots in a row. Jermaine O'Neal answers by hitting a fadeaway, then goes at Rodman again, gives him a little pump fake action, makes a terrible pass into a great pass, and Reggie Miller hits the go-ahead three-pointer in MJ's face to put them up 2. Of course, there's nothing to worry about because the Bulls had the epitome of the GTA 5 train in Jordan, but Jermaine O'Neal helps with a perfect contest. Artis Gilmore throws the ball away, and they have to start fouling. Jordan misses another shot, and the Pacers pull off the impossible. They beat the Chicago Bulls on the road 47-41. There was not one impressive stat line to come out of this game. Jordan might have placed a bet on this one or something, but he better learn Indian quick because he's becoming the new starting point guard on the Pacers with limited help by his side. That's it for the first wave of attacks. 10 teams were eliminated. The Midwest is still up for grabs, but the Lakers, Warriors, and Hornets have no option but to attack in the next round. First up on the attack in the second round is the Boston Celtics, who only get Vermont, so nothing really changes for them, but as a Midwesterner, I gotta say I like the shape of this new Massachusetts much better. Next up is the Trailblazers, who have a 75% chance of playing, but they get Idaho. And the Pelicans are up next. They have some decent teams in their area, but they end up playing the Hawks. This game was just awkward overall. The Hawks were being led by Bob Pettit. Then on the other side, you have 22-year-old Zion Williamson trying to bully him into a tomahawk post every possession, and it ended up being decided by floaters and pull-up jumpers. The Pelicans pulled off the upset on the road here, 54-46. Dominique Wilkins and Bob Pettit are tied at 95 overall, but I had a hunch to go with the guy who has more hair on his head than his torso. So Dominique is going to be joining the high-flying Pelicans and Chris Paul. The Pelicans are now circling in the Miami Heat, which is a bold move for them. And wouldn't you know it, the Heat are up next. It's a 50-50 between the Pelicans and Alabama. They ended up becoming Floribama, but there will not be a peaceful route out of the next round for the Heat. Next up, the Warriors are up again. They are surrounded by some pretty good teams. They're taking the more difficult route here and heading north to challenge the Portland Trailblazers. To be honest, they look pretty well off considering they have the advantage at every position besides Kevin Durant facing Kevin Durant. These teams were looking really even in the first quarter. The Trailblazers did manage to take a 5-point lead, but they elected to get into a 3-point shootout with a team full of 3-point threats. And like you might expect, they did not win this battle. The Warriors had a 10-point lead at the half and ended up winning by 14 on the road. Dame and Clyde Drexler finished in double digits, but Curry had 30 after only scoring on 3-pointers. The best original Trailblazer was Clyde Drexler, but KD is moving on to his next chapter to start at the small forward alongside KD 2.0. The Nuggets are now up, but they only take Wyoming, which adds the Warriors and Grizzlies to their borders. And somehow this will landed on the Spurs, whose only shot out of a game here is Arkansas. They end up having to play the Mavericks, so to no surprise, the Texas teams are taking each other out as soon as possible. Both teams have already added players to their starting fives between Hakeem and Nash. The Mavs got off to a real ugly start, and the Spurs ended up with a 13-5 lead in the first quarter. The small forward position is a big weakness on this Mavs team, but Jamal Mashburn did not get the memo. And in the second, the Mavs took the lead back after a dime from Nash to Luka for a 3-pointer. Luka was having a mediocre game all day until the last 4 minutes of the game. He just took over and scored 11 points straight for the Mavs. In the last minute, the Spurs still didn't look out of it, but they made an interesting decision to take Hakeem out and give it to David Robinson for a contested jumper while down 5, which is blocked by James Donaldson, and the Mavs pull off a big win for complete control over all of Texas. The Spurs have everything a conquering team could want, but I chose to take Tim Duncan and start him at center. The Mavs now have a super overpowered 1 through 5, and then there's just Michael Finley in the middle of it. By far the worst remaining team is up next, with the Charlotte Hornets being stuck between the Wizards and the Pelicans. They ended up playing the Pelicans, who have already added Dominique Wilkins. The Pelicans are better at every position for an advantage of 25 total overall. This game was a slow burner, and I really didn't even know what to say about it. The all-time Hornets are a gross team to watch. All they did was bomb threes all night, take good shots, and attempted 0 dunks. Yet they were up almost 20 points on the Pelicans in the fourth and ended up winning by 12 on the road for by far the biggest upset yet. Outside of CP3 and Jamal Mashburn, the entire Pels choked, and almost every Hornet shot over 500 from the 3-point line, while also Alonzo Mourning had a solid 13-13 game. The Hornets need help everywhere, so I just took the best Pelicans player, which is CP3, who will start at point guard. The 76ers are on the attack again, and they'll be heading south to challenge the Wizards. The Wizards have a few shooters on their team, but they're mostly old heads that aren't that special. Outside of a 2-0 lead for Washington, the 76ers controlled this game the whole way and won 63-53. I took Elvin Hayes from the Wizards, who is only going to add depth to the 76ers team. The Mexican Lakers are up for their first game, and and they are lurking under the Clippers and the Mavs. They ended up playing the Clippers, who they have a huge advantage on, but the Clippers had them in a stalemate entering the fourth quarter, although the Lakers went on to get 3 easy buckets in a row in crunch time to give them a surprisingly narrow victory, 46-39. The Lakers are good enough to win this entire thing by waiting until the very end with no upgrades, but I still added 95 Kawhi Leonard, which only makes him the 8th man off the bench. The last Canadian team is up again. They're taking Alberta, so they're still hiding in the corner, and I don't blame them. The Bucks end up taking South Dakota, which connects the Northwest to the Midwest, adding the Nuggets and Grizzlies to their borders. The new and improved Jordan Pacers are on the attack. They have 5 states on their border, and the Hornets, who still might as well be a free territory, but they'll be going at the most dominant team in the region, the Cleveland Cavs, who have already added Isaiah Thomas and Vince Carter. LeBron started off with a tough finish, but then the Pacers went on a 17-0 run in the first quarter, and that pretty much did it for the entire game. The Pacers got another huge win on the road, beating the Cavs 71-56. In classic LeBron fashion, he was the only player on his team with a good game, and the rest of his team was playing like they were in wheelchairs. No brainer here. The Pacers are now the only team with 2 99 overall players, with LeBron running the point and MJ at the small forward. Only 3 teams are left to attack in the second round, and first up is the Timberwolves. They made a wise decision here and took North Dakota instead of attacking their neighboring teams, who have the top 3 players in the entire game. The Nets are up for the first time since adding Delaware, but they have to take on the 76ers. They lost 42-56. The highest overall player on the Nets was 97 overall Dr. J, who will be replacing 94 overall Dr. J in the 76ers starting 5. And just for fun, it looks like the Mavericks are up next. They'll be taking a rest this time and taking Oklahoma to complete their beautiful 37th parallel territory. That concludes the second round of attacks. We're down to 12 teams, and I did not expect the Hornets or any of the teams sharing the Canadian provinces to still be here, but here we are. The Pacers are up first on the attack in the third round. If they beat the Bucks and take 99 overall Kareem, this video is pretty much as good as over. But they are so large at this point that they have 10 possibilities on the wheel. They'll be taking Quebec, which only adds to the possibilities for them since they now add the Virgin Celtics team to their border. The Bucks are up and finally have their first game against the Denver Nuggets. If I knew the Bucks would end up V-lining toward the Nuggets, I probably would have taken Karl Malone instead of Stockton, because Kareem and Giannis were having their way with these nice white folks whenever they wanted to. It felt like watching a hate crime in a parallel universe. Giannis easily scored the first 18 of 23 for the Bucks with 1 miss and didn't slow down much all game. The Bucks won 56-45. This might be seen as a questionable move by me, but it makes perfect sense in my head. The best players on the Nuggets are 97 overall John Stockton and Nikola Jokic, but I think Oscar Robertson and Kareem have those positions covered on the Bucks, and they need a player that can score from outside 10 feet, so I'm taking prime Carmelo Anthony and making him the starting small forward for the Bucks. The Grizzlies are forced to step up to the plate again. They have some really solid teams on their border, but they end up playing the Timberwolves. I never thought this game would have ever happened, but these two young franchises ended up touching tips just in time for a fair game. This really was one of the best games in a while. Both teams were doing some pushing and shoving while staying tied up. Neither team could pull ahead until Kevin Love showed off his 20-inch vertical and got the Timberwolves fired up. Jimmy Butler started playing like he was homeless again and scored 6 straight for the Wolves, and they won 49-37. KG had a very mediocre game high of 13, and Ja and Powell each put up 12 for the Grizzlies. Afterwards, I took 94 overall Ja Morant to start for the Timberwolves, but this lineup is still pretty rough around the edges. The Canadians are wanting to click off this video, and the 76ers are up once again, but they'll be taking on the powerhouse Boston Celtics on the road. The 76ers have already added 2 players, so these teams were pretty evenly matched at this point, but the Celtics had no problem keeping up with these flashy players thanks to their good old honest fundamentals and their ability to hit some stupid shots like a finger roll from the free throw line. But thanks to the Dr. J's and Allen Iverson, the 76ers were able to hold off the number 2 team coming into this 58-45. Bird had a Celtics high of 13 and AI had a game high of 19. Bird and Bill are both good enough to become the new star of the 76ers, but they're pretty set down low and they could use some diversity in Philly, so the Hick from French Lick will be starting at the 3, pushing Dr. J to the 2 and AI to the 6-man. Next up is the Mavericks, who have stayed fairly aggressive throughout this, but they will be taking a 3rd round bye and claim Arkansas. We're staying on the West Coast as the Lakers are taking on one of the best teams to begin with, the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors pulled ahead early on with a 7-2 run, but Kobe just had to crash their party and torch the Big O. And unlike current day Kawhi, this all-time Kawhi is a high-tech machine in 2K. Curry was having a solid game himself and single-handedly keeping the Warriors in this. They had it within 6 points with about a minute left. KD 2.0 had a good shot opportunity, but it's in and out. The Warriors get another stop, but Curry forgot how to basketball and dribbled it off Kobe's leg, which stopped their comeback chances entirely. The Lakers win this one 63-55, and just like that, the number 2 Celtics and number 3 Warriors are off the face of the earth. Wilt Chamberlain quietly had a nearly perfect game with 19. Curry and one of the KDs also also had a solid game. But on the other side of things, Shaq and Kobe combined for 37. Wilt is still the best player on the Warriors, but considering the Lakers already have Shaq, Kareem, and Wilt, I gave them a different look here with 97 Curry starting at point, which means Lee Goat will have to come off the bench. 3 more teams are left to attack in the 3rd round, and next up is the Heat, who once again don't have a say in who they're attacking. The Heat were far better off coming into this. The Hornets kept it closer than they should have, but the Heat managed to pull off the easy victory, 58-47. The Banana Boat squad is now complete in Miami. CP3 will be the new starting point guard. The Timberwolves are the last team to attack in the 3rd round, and they'll be facing the Pacers, who are led by none other than LeBron and Jordan. This Pacers team has a weird dynamic, but it works out for them. LeBron is an overpowered point guard in the pick and roll. Almost every player on their team can hit tough threes. Jordan can hit any tough shot he wants, and Jermaine O'Neal isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. They defeated the Timberwolves 62-49. There's a herd of goats on this Pacers squad, but PG-13 led the way with 12 points. Even though LeBron has been starting at point guard this whole time, he was still the tallest player in this squad, starting 5, so 6'11" KG is going to provide more than enough help for them inside. We're now in the 4th round. 6 teams remain, and from what I've seen, all of these teams have a shot at winning this. First up on the attack is the Bucks. They're becoming surrounded, but they still have a few cop-outs with Nebraska and Kansas, and they'll be taking Kansas for now. The Mavericks are up next. There's no way out of a game in this one for them. They'll be playing the Pacers, which means whichever team wins this is going to cut the entire map in half. The Pacers got KG just in time to slow down Dirk and Timmy, but they might have been fine anyway since their game plan was just to abuse Steve Nash at every opportunity, and the Mavericks were forced to have Michael Finley guard MJ, so yeah, that didn't work out. The Pacers got out to a 10-0 run, then it got to the point where LeBron was cradle dunking in traffic to push their lead to 20, and before halftime their lead was 30, and Steve Nash is having a panic attack. The Pacers embarrassed the Mavericks in this one 72-37. 3 Pacers finished in double digits, and every 90 overall or higher Maverick was held to 2 points or less. I chose to add Dirk at the 4 for some extra shooting and size, and out of nowhere these Pacers went from one of the smallest and worst starting 5s to having one of the best starting 5s, and their smallest starter is an underrated guard named Michael Jordan. We're now down to the final 5 teams of the video. Even before the Pacers took over the Mavs, they were by far the largest territory in square miles. They're now nearly 3 million square miles, which is around the size of Australia. Their population is the 2nd largest with 137 million, which is similar to Russia. Thanks to the Lakers owning all of Mexico, they're 2nd in size and larger than India. They are 1st in population, which would make them the 8th most populous country on earth between Nigeria and Bangladesh. The Bucks have had a Midwest addiction from the start. Because of that, they're 3rd in size and last in population. The Heat own most of the Deep South, and at this point they're probably monopolizing the step family industry. They are 4th in size and 3rd in population with over 69 million people. And the 76ers are the smallest in territory with just over 200,000 square miles, but 4th in population with 64 million people. Back to the wheel, and the 76ers are up next. They just beat the Celtics, so they're taking the most defensive stance by bordering the most unoccupied states on the map. For now, they'll only be adding Maryland. The Lakers are up, who have 2 tough possibilities between the Pacers and Bucks, but they're still the favorite in both matchups. They are going to be challenging the Bucks, which gives them an overall advantage at every position besides Kareem being 1 overall higher than prime Shaq. It was no surprise that Melo and Kobe were 1v1ing at every chance they had in this one, but there was another rivalry brewing because George Mikan looks like Kareem's arch nemesis, and he came in off the bench and cooked the Bucks inside the first quarter. I honestly forgot that the Bucks have a young Ray Allen coming off the bench for them. He came in and took the lead back before the end of the first quarter. These two were dead even over the next 10 minutes, but Carmelo is so confident that he tried posting up Shaq. It was such a bad idea that it ended up paying off with an open 3. The Lakers are hot. Carmelo was just blocked. Doesn't matter. Melo hits a transition 3 and puts him up 6. He has 7-2 Kareem guarding him with Shaq and Magic helping down low. Of course, he goes right at his neck in the paint and hits the and 1. Kobe wasn't trying to be one-upped at his own game. He got an open 3 with a minute left, down 6, but it's no good. And these Bucks again are rewarded for their bad decisions. Kareem gets to the paint. He loses Shaq. There's 2 guards on him. Melo's been cooking all game. He's wide open and already ready to shoot it. But here's Oscar with his back turned to him, running away. Never shot a 3-pointer in his entire career. Doesn't matter. Ball game. The Bucks take out the best all-time team 55-47. Picking Melo over Stockton and Jokic couldn't have worked out any better for this game. Giannis and Kareem were nerfed on offense this game, but that's when it pays off to have 05 Melo come in and take 20 shots in 18 minutes. Kobe and Shaq still had great performances of their own, but it wasn't enough, and now I have full faith in Giannis and Kareem to handle every big man left on the map. So I'm gladly adding another overly confident shot creator and Kobe Bean Bryant at the shooting guard. There's only 2 teams left to attack in the 4th round, and it's going to be the Heat invading the 76ers. For the first time, the Heat have the worst of the 2 starting 5s, and as usual, they're outsized. But LeBron decided to set the tone of this game early with the ultimate power move. He blew by Moses, threw a knee into the doctor's chest, and also tried tried fitting Embiid into the poster. Later in the first, Moses took the lead back after getting an offensive rebound and putback, but from there the Heat simply small-balled the hell out of them. Wade finally stepped up and caught some bodies, but even Eddie Jones was catching lobs past Wilt and Dr. J by the end of this, and the Heat eliminated the last top 5 team on the road 64-38. One of the Dr. J's was the only 76er to finish in double digits. For the Heat, McGrady, Wade, and LeBron had 10 or more, and Alonzo continued to hold down things in the paint for them with a near double-double. The Heat aren't going to catch a break in the paint in the future, so I could have taken 97 Moses or taken the future MVP Joel Embiid, who doesn't mess with their system much, but I'd rather have me some white boy Rick. The Pacers are the last team on the attack, and either way they'll be in the next game, but they still have 5 territories on their border, and they'll be adding Kentucky for now. I reset the wheel with the remaining 3 teams. The Pacers are up again, and they'll be taking Maine. The Bucks are next, and it's a 50-50 for them of a road game, but thanks to Nebraska, they'll remain neutral for now. The Heat had a 1 out of 3 chance to play the Pacers, and they get the semifinal matchup. The Heat were trailing by a few points almost the entire game, but Bird hits a tough shot, which starts a late run for them in the 4th. They end up tying it at 38 after Miami LeBron blows by MJ for an alley-oop. Both teams go 2 minutes without scoring, and Jordan is cold, so little CP3 hits a big-time 3 with him closing out. Still, Jordan goes on to hit a ridiculous shot to bring the game back within 1. The Pacers get a stop, and LeBron tries to one-up Jordan with an even worse shot, which gets sent back, and the Pacers are forced to foul. With time running out, Jordan brings it up court. He finds LeBron for an open deep 3, but he hesitates and misses. The Heat put an end to the Cinderella Pacers, beating them on the road 47-42. I know I could have taken Jordan or another LeBron and make it work for the Heat, but I'm well aware of what's waiting for them on the other side of the map, so I take Kevin Garnett to start at center for the Heat. The last game will be 12-minute quarters, and we still have to go to the wheel to determine the home court advantage. The Heat still border 4 territories, but the Bucks are surrounded by the Heat, so they're at a disadvantage here, and that makes it pretty simple. The Bucks will be attacking the Miami Heat in the championship game. Larry Bird has been in Miami for a solid couple of minutes, and he is a changed man. He put up a quick 8 points and put up a Heat check with plenty of time on the clock from about 40 feet out. It didn't go in, but goddamn do I respect him for trying. The Heat had a 7-point lead, but LeBron wasn't going to stand for it. He walked out of bounds and followed that up by making a great move that got him the easiest shot of all time, but froze up for another turnover. Kareem then decided to literally step up and help and block every shot he could. It's a good thing Larry got his shots up quickly in this one because his back isn't going to last him until halftime at this rate. The second half was a different story for the Bucks offense. Kobe and Carmelo found a way to work in perfect unison with only 1 basketball. Really all that meant for them was calling an ISO one after another. In worst case scenario, one of the 7-footers would get the offensive rebound for them. The Bucks have been fighting from behind all night, but they finally tied the game up at 81 after Kobe caught an alley-oop. That was cute and all, but KG decided to ruin the moment and force Kareem into his 4th foul after Russell Westbrooking his way into the basket. About a minute later, he did it again for Kareem's 5th foul. He can't believe it, even though he was caught on 50 different cameras committing assault and battery. Regardless of the Bucks defense, Kobe was determined to keep them in this game. He drew the foul on LeBron, and LeBron is flexing on him. And the play that does it, Bird sets up KG on the pick and roll for Kareem's 3rd foul in 3 minutes to foul him out of the game with 4.5 minutes left. But I'm still thinking this is fine for the Bucks. They still have some of the best shooters of all time. They've been gaining momentum, and 7-foot Giannis can take over for the center duties. Nope, they're just gonna send in 6'7" Chris Middleton to play center. Chris came in and was even struggling to guard CP3 off the switch. He had no chance of stopping KG at the rim, and Chris might as well have not tried to screen anybody at all because players like LeBron were just able to morph through him. I don't know who sold the comeback more, the refs, Chris Middleton, or the coaches / coding that put him in this position in the first place, but the Heat won the final game 103-90 at home. Larry Bird led the Heat with 25 points, but most of that came in the first quarter. KG had a solid double-double, and LeBron kind of disappeared for this one. Kobe had a game high of 28 points with 0 assists. Giannis had 19 and 11, and Ray Allen had 16 points in 11 minutes, so they might as well have subbed him in at center. But that does it. The Miami Heat have won it all. Colombia and other drug smuggling countries are going to turn into an economic superpower overnight. I mean, this is probably the last U.S. city you want to model your country after, but blame LeBron James. He's truly the king of super teams. But yeah, that's the video. Stay limp.